Geneva Area City School Board of Education meeting. Welcome to all of you in attendance this evening. Mr. Lillie, roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt?
Present.
Ms. Fisher?
Here.
Mrs. Metzler?
Here.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Here.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Present.
Are we in compliance?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any correspondence this evening?
Yes, I received a thank you note from Spire for our meeting last month with them, and a few correspondences that were directed back to the buildings that were building level concerns or issues.
Okay. And are there any agenda modifications?
There are. There are additions to 16A, resignations. There's a new 17. The old 17 through 20 now becomes 18 through 21. There are additions to 18D4, extracurricular assignments, and a new 22.
Okay. It's now time for the hearing of the public. Each person that would like to address the board can step up to the mic. You will be given 5 minutes each. You will be alerted when you have 30 seconds remaining in your time to speak. The total time for the hearing of the public is 30 minutes, and we'd ask that you state your name and address for the record when you come to the mic.
Good evening. Mary Allison, 5076 Lake Road East, Geneva, Ohio. First, Mr. Liebert, we are going to truly miss you. You're a great loss for our district, and I really enjoyed working with you. Good luck for the future. We need to be helping our employees get what they need to get their jobs done. A lot of POs are not getting signed. I didn't know if anybody was aware of this. Our GPS, which is one of the larger elementaries, has had their floor machine down since April. She even got desperate enough to get the old Spencer elementary floor machine out. Tried to use that, it broke. She kind of was told that there's no money tree to fix it, which I find hard to believe. We need to get our, everything in shape and get ready for the next school year, so this is a concern. The middle schools was down for a couple weeks, but they finally, just today, got it running, so that's a plus. We have a bus at Cerny Motors. The part that needed replaced on it was free, but there's some labor cost, $1,400 to get it done. It's torn apart, it's there. $1,400 is still cheaper than another bus, and we need these buses to transport our students. They deserve to have that bus back as well as our drivers, because they need them. Let's see, are you aware that when the bus drivers had to double and triple up, that by state law, you're supposed to have addresses for all the students and names and emergency medical forms, so if you have a diabetic, asthmatic, anything like that. This was not done this year, so I think that needs to be addressed for next year, because we really do need to make sure our student safety is our #1 concern, and that we're getting them back to the right place where they live and need to be dropped off. Wondering what we're going to be doing about our school nurses to be proactive, and about bus driver subs, so that the double and triple up of the buses don't keep happening over and over and over again, where the bus drivers come in and told, oh, by the way, you've got to do this, pick up these kids too, with no list. Also concerned was there's no pest control, was not approved, especially for GPS. I don't know about the other schools. In the past practice, it was always that pest control was taken care of. Now, the individual people, custodians, have to run to Central Hardware, wherever, to get whatever they need. And this is not going to be cost effective, because of course it's going to cost a little bit more there. Usually if you have a pest control, they'll stand by their job too, so if you have another issue, they'll come back and take care of it. let's see, I think I was trying to keep it brief. But the money thing, I just don't understand, I guess, the PTO or the POs. With a 13.9 mil in our general fund and a 2 mil in capital improvements, and I don't know about the ESSER funds, what's left of those. But I just want us to be proactive to be able to provide the best environment for our kids and our staff and not nickel and dime everything. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Jennifer Cork, 4782 North Ridge Road, East Geneva, 44041. I'm here in regard to a few concerns I have. I know I spoke a couple times, and I don't seem to be getting proper answers, so I'm trying again. I'm starting with the Right at School program. As a parent, I'm really upset about this. I can't get a straight, valid answer about it. I've been told through the grapevine that it's too expensive, but I don't understand because this year there was supposed to be a grant for it, and the parents were aware, at least at Cork, and there were a lot of people at the meeting, that that we would have to pay in the new school year, we would have to pay more, and we were okay with that. So I understand you have a new program, and that's good and wonderful. However, you know, I'm not sure that I stand by the YMCA with everything going on, and why fix something that's not broken. So if it did cost the school a lot of money, I want to see that. I want to understand why parents like myself didn't get to have a say in this, because I tried reaching out to a lot of people through a lot of different avenues just to get an understanding. Like, I know I had a super experience and my son loved it, and the ones in his program at Cork, they loved it. They had amazing teachers. But maybe at other schools it wasn't the same, but nobody told me. I didn't hear anything negative, so I'm struggling with that. Next, it seems concerning to me that teachers and that have taken on roles this past year are giving them up. Like, what is going on? Like, why are these teachers leaving? Why is Mr. Liebert leaving? Like, why are teachers who are teachers with a good income taking lower positions and taking a huge cut in pay? Like, what is going on with Geneva schools? What are we doing for our teachers to keep them happy and healthy? I mean, I saw the message today from Mr. Liebert that he's leaving, which is very sad, that, you know, he's going to be closer to home, and that's good and all. You know, that's super awesome. But also for his overall well-being. What in the world? We've got to do more for our teachers. We've got to keep them happy. Otherwise, they're going to go elsewhere. We're not going to have teachers in our schools. And parents are going to take their children to other schools. They'll take them to other districts. They'll take them to the private schools. I mean, the private schools get money for them too, and there's a lot of scholarships. I can speak from personal experience because I teach at a private school. So we've got to do more for our teachers. Geneva, when I went to school in Geneva, was an amazing district. All the kids wanted to come to Geneva. Now all the kids and their parents are leaving Geneva. We've got to do something more about this. Another concern I have is, you know, what Ms. Allison mentioned, the purchase orders. They're being denied for cleaning products. The cleaning lady at Cork, her vacuum broke. She was told, use the vacuum. Well, it doesn't have wheels. How is she going to vacuum those rugs and keep the school clean, which affects the children in the long run, if she has a broken vacuum? Why are we not providing this? The PTO shouldn't have to do that. Like, the PTO bought her vacuum, but it's not high functioning, it's not heavy duty. The PTO is there for the kids and the students and the parents, like for the teachers. They shouldn't be buying, and they did it out of the goodness of their heart, and that's wonderful. However, we've got to do more. We have to, you know, we've got to keep these schools clean. We got to give the people what they need to succeed. And then that's about it. I mean, last, you know, why are we still waiting on this board to ask Dr. Treharn to move down? Like, what is going on? We've got to do something here. Like, seriously. That's all.
Thank you.
What did she say? I didn't hear what she said. Ask Dr. Treharn to do what? I'm sorry, Kevin, did you catch what she said? Ask Dr. Treharn to do what? I'm not sure. I didn't hear her.
You can ask.
We can ask her. Ms. Cork, I didn't hear your last. Where did you go, Jennifer? I'm right here. You asked Dr. Treharn to do what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Why are we waiting to ask for resignation?
Oh,
We have a lot of unhappy things going on. I think we all can ask for like one major thing.
Jennifer Cork.
thank you for clarifying.
Cork.
Hi, Kathy Simmons, 650 Bridal Court, Geneva. I'm just here on behalf of GATA, and we wanted to wish Scott Liebert well in his new position. We are very sorry to see him leave us, and we appreciate the support and kindness he has provided to the staff and students of our district. This is a great loss to our district, but we wish you the best in the future, Mr. Liebert.
Okay. We will need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Is there a motion for the treasurer's financial report?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And a motion for the approval of the invoices?
Move.
Second.
And any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And our informational items tonight?
You see some donations listed there from after-school discovery for the high school's participation and placing in the Spring Wildflower ID competition and the Fall Tree ID competition. And then a donation made to Geneva Middle School for their field day from the Augustinskis, who have the Utz potato chip distribution in the area.
Okay, and a legislative report this evening, Mrs. Dixon?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, House Bill 619 was introduced. This would allow school districts to permit K through 12 students to take up to 3 mental health days per school year as excused absences or as an in-school mental health program, and allows school districts to refer a student who uses the mental health day to the appropriate school health and support services, such as counseling, social work, or psychological services. Okay, House Bill 633 was introduced. This would prohibit the sharing of public school student directory information without written consent of the parent or guardian. Now, most schools, is my understanding, most school districts already have this policy in place, but now it's state law. Or I mean, introduced to be a state law, excuse me, not law yet. That would also require any directory information provided to a recruiting officer for any branch of the United States Armed Forces to be used solely for the purpose of providing information to students regarding military service. So it's sort of narrowing that reason they can share with military recruiters. HB 639 was introduced. This would require students who enter the 9th grade on or after July 1st of 23 to have self-defense included in their 1/2 unit of health instruction. And beginning with the 23-24 school year, require teachers who provide mental health instruction to complete a course in self-defense training that is determined by the school district. The Primary and Secondary Education Committee amended House Bill 583, which delays the dyslexia screening and intervention requirements for the students in grade K through 6 to the 23-24 school year. So it was originally supposed to be implemented this coming school year, but the logistics didn't get ironed out and all of that, so we're delaying it for another year. It permits Ohio school districts to utilize the Ohio Dyslexia Guidebook if it chooses, but specifies that a school district must comply with mandated statutes. It removes multisensory from the description of multisensory structured literacy programs, changes the professional development requirements to indicate that the Ohio Department of Education maintains a list of trainings instead of a list of courses. It requires the ODE to consider community school sponsor rating for an entity that succeeded the University of Toledo as a sponsor. And it changes the membership of the Substitute Teacher Shortages Study Committee. So it's amended to do all of those things, and again, to be implemented in '23. The House Primary and Secondary Education Committee they held sponsor testimony for HB 529. This would require public and non-public schools to post on a publicly accessible website course curricula, including a course syllabus that includes a list of all instructional materials, activities, and textbooks, a written summary, and state academic standards. The bill also would require public colleges to post on a publicly accessible website course curricular for each course a secondary student who participates in the College Credit Plus program is enrolled. In other words, it's just a bill that says all of the school districts and all of the educators have to post at the beginning of the school year their entire curricula for the year. That same committee had a second hearing on HB 492. This would require school athletic coaches to complete a mental health training each time they apply for or renew a pupil activity program permit and provide evidence of completed the training to the state board. The committee also introduced Collins Law, which is the Ohio Anti-Hazing Act, with regard to hazing policies at colleges and criminal prohibitions against hazing. And the reason I included it is because it's, it applies to 18-year-olds, and so 18-year-olds may still be in high school, and so those laws, those anti-hazing prohibitions would go to them too. The Senate Primary and Secondary Education Committee held a third hearing on HB 105. This would require public schools to provide age-appropriate instruction in child sexual abuse and sexual violence prevention, and require in-service staff training in child sexual abuse prevention. The Senate Judiciary Committee held a second hearing on SB 226, which would extend from the age of majority, 18, to 26, the tolling of the period of limitation for offenses involving a wound, injury, disability, or condition that indicates abuse or neglect of a child. I had to do a lot of research on this one. So what this means essentially is when, under current law, I need to make sure I say this right, so give me 1 minute to organize my thoughts. So under current law, at 18 years old, the clock, when the child turns 18, the clock starts on the statute of limitations for any criminal offense that was perpetrated against them as a child. If you were harmed by an adult when you were 6, when you're 18 years old, then the statute of limitations starts. So let's say child abuse, tier 1. So tier 1 child abuse currently holds 7 to 10 years recommended sentence for someone who is a perpetrator. So that sentence, that statute of limitations is 7 to 10 years, 7 years for a 7 to 10 year sentence. So the 7 years started at 18 years old, when the victim turned 18. Now, it's not until the victim turns 26. So the statute of limitations clock starts on the victim's 26th birthday, when it used to start on the 18th. Does that make sense? 18th birthday? So they extended it by 7 years to give children, adult survivors of child abuse a longer period of time to prosecute their abusers. All right. HB 583 is the substitutes education requirements that is currently on DeWine's desk. It's been passed through House and Senate. We just need to wait for his signature to extend it another, I didn't write this down, another year, another 5 years, it's something. But they're looking to make it permanent, but this one's not permanent yet. This one has a time limit as well. And last but not least, Governor DeWine did sign House Bill 99 into law. This is the law that grants local boards of education authority to decide whether to allow their teachers and school workers to carry firearms. Whether the bill establishes a quantitative legal minimum has been disputed. However, it says that local school boards must require up to 24 hours of training from teachers before they can carry. Boards could choose to mandate, but this isn't required. The governor said that it's a local issue, and so each school board is now charged with deciding whether or not we're going to allow our teachers to be armed in the schools. So that's all I have. Thank you all.
Thank you. Ms. Fisher, an ATEC report this evening?
Yes, we had our monthly ATEC report this morning, and the main highlights are on August 9th. There will be the practical nurse graduation being held at the cafeteria. Their school being out, they're in the midst of a lot of maintenance work going on, parking lot patching, roof repair, cleaning, and so forth. And other than that, we had 5 pages of personnel activity. This being the season, we've had a whole slew of resignations, a lot of people that are switching from one job to another job and have to resign from one position in order to accept the second position. And so we had 5 full pages of personnel activity of that sort. And that's it for ATEC.
Okay, thank you. All right, now to the report of the superintendent. Do you want me to read the first one? What's that? You want me to read it? Yeah, go ahead.
So the first one is a discussion regarding Smolin Engineering. If you recall, this was something that the board had asked back in January, I believe, for Smolin to do some work and come up with some options for the Board of Education office. So they were supposed to get back with us within 3 months. I had reached out numerous times to them via phone and email, and finally heard back this past Sunday evening. So the reason that they had expressed for the delay and some of the comments that were made were that construction numbers keep changing and fluctuating. Some examples they provided were that they saw roofing prices change by 30%, metal building component prices changed by 31% from March 1st to May 1st, supply shortages that I think we're all hearing about. So they felt it was difficult to price anything that would be realistic in order to provide us. But at this time, I was told that we would have the package on or before Friday, July 1st. But I know that there was some other conversation that maybe some of the other board members wanted to have surrounding this and options.
Yes, and I did ask that this be put onto the agenda for tonight because I thought we needed to circle back to it since it's been 6 months since we discussed it before. And I have been in, discussion with Dr. Treharn about getting in touch with Smolin, and Smolin has been non-communicative until now. So I wanted to have a discussion about some of the other options that we had talked about prior and see where we were at, considering this has taken 6 months to get a package that we don't have yet. We don't know what it's going to say. We don't know how much it's going to cost. And I can say that I had requested a new statement from the owners of the Pairings Building, which we had discussed prior. And I don't have the old amount, but I do know that the amount to purchase that land building, the build-to-suit development of that building, and it being turnkey has gone up $180,000 or $190,000 since the last time we requested that estimate, which was in December. So I think with that information, we know, and we all understand already, the price of goods has gone up. It's also difficult to get some of those goods. So obviously the price of Pairings has gone up. It is still available for purchase if we want to consider that building for purchase. It was my suggestion, and I know that some of you have decided to do that, to take a tour of Pairings, because to my knowledge, there has not been a tour of Pairings by the school board. Even in the past, there were some other employees of the district that toured Pairings, but not school board members. So to that end, Ms. Fisher and I will be touring Pairings tomorrow, and we are also going to be looking at the house on the hill.
Me too.
Okay, are you, okay. I think our time is, we have them in a couple different time frames so that we are not all together.
Got it.
Okay, so we will be touring Pairings and the house on the hill tomorrow. A few of us are, so that we can kind of understand what these options are, how they look, and really get a better picture of what we're discussing. And we were really hoping that this package from Smolin would be here tonight so that we can discuss it. But when we do get that we'll have to have communication about that and see, because if you recall, we asked them to find a location on our property here at the high school that they can build on. We asked them to give us an estimate on the house on the hill. We asked them to give us an estimate, I believe, of adding on to the media center, a separate addition to that. So that should all be within that package if they have done what we've asked them to do. And that'll be another point of discussion. So I'd like to open it up to the rest of the board members and hear where you're at. I feel personally, I'm tired of waiting for this. It's a big decision. I understand that it's a lot of money to spend, but I feel like we've just been spinning our wheels, and I feel like we need to move forward on this.
You got anything?
Go ahead.
Madam President, thank you. One for resurfacing this issue. I do appreciate that. Do you happen to have the original quote with you?
Not with me.
For the pairings?
No, not with me. And the original I don't have. Just like I said, the last estimate that they gave us, which was in December, this estimate now is $190,000 more than that. I don't have the original.
The fluctuation with the costs up, down, steel, lumber, plumbing, everything, that is in fact, it's across the board, it's the whole industry. But I appreciate your efforts and hard work on this.
Sure.
Mr. Arndt, I do have all 3 estimates that we received from Renew Partners. Did you have a question about them?
Just the original quote on Pairings
So
for
the-
purchase turnkey.
The very first one, which I believe, he didn't date this letter, but I believe it was September, was $775,000
Okay, that one I remember.
turnkey. Then the second one, which was dated November 24th that we discussed at the December meeting, was $799,000. And then this latest one, as Mrs. Metzler mentioned, went up quite a bit more. All told, from the beginning, from the very first one to this one, the estimate has gone up 27.6%, which is pretty much in line with what Smolin told Dr. Hrina-Treharn, that they were seeing a 30%, 31% increases in different materials. So I still feel that this is going to be the least expensive option, Renew Partners. As we discussed before, we had estimates on turning the house into a board office that range from $1 million to $1.3 million. 3 different, one was a very rough estimate by our own Serge Grenier and Scott Sidoti. I think another one was either Hughes Roller, a construction company that they reached out to, but even based on the 27.6, that million would be 1.276 million. The 1.2 estimate would be 1,531,000. The 1.3 estimate would be $1,659,000.
So the 190,000 raise is added to the 775?
No,
$799.
799, so it's added to the second one.
Yeah, the newest one is $989,000.
Okay, so it's close to $1 million.
Yeah.
And you're going to have another piece of property. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lillie, that 775 was from September of '21?
Yes.
Yes, when
all
we
right.
first started talking,
Okay.
discussing the,
Okay, thank you.
So let me say this out loud for my own benefit, if I may. So 989,000 for pairings to be able to walk in and use it, right?
Right.
1.3 to 1.5 million for,
we don't have any official engineering estimates. That's what Smolin was asked to provide the board for the house, turning the house into a board office or building somewhere on this high school site.
I see.
Without
Okay.
these other estimates that I'm referencing were rough estimates obtained a number of years ago. And so they've definitely will go up if they were close. But they range from $1 million to 1.3 million
okay,
at that time.
right.
So they
And then-
could go up
okay.
as much as 25%.
It could go up
Follows.
more than that.
Yeah.
I would estimate more than that.
Okay. And then, so that's what we're waiting for Smolin for. We're waiting for them for the estimate on the house on the hill, and we're waiting for them for an estimate on building onto this property somewhere.
Right.
Wasn't there a third thing, Dr. Treharn?
Yes, the third was to bump out of the media center.
Right. So build on or build new here on the building is two separate options.
The house on the hill.
And the house on the
And
hill.
the house on the hill and Pairings.
And
Got it.
Pairings.
Thank you.
Did we get any type of idea of how long the 989 would stand? How long we have to decide on that?
Nothing said.
There's no date on this letter. I mean, there's a line in here that just says, time is not on our side with respect to repricing this project. So,
What does that mean?
I mean,
It'll get worse with more time.
for sure. And it has already gotten worse in just the last 6 months.
The
Yes,
longer we wait, the more expensive it gets.
Definitely.
Got it.
So if we don't have anything from Smolin by the 1st, where do we go from there as far as having a comparison?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's part of the discussion, because do we want to try and engage with another firm to give us the estimates that we want, that Smolin was supposed to provide, and what is the process for doing that?
Do we want to take them at their word that they will have the information to us by the 1st?
I mean, that's all we can go with right now, and that's only a few days
That's
away.
only 2 days, so I
Right.
think we wait. If they don't give us what they promised us by then we look at other options?
Yeah, but I wanted to
What
find
are
out.
those options?
That's what I wanted to find out.
Yeah, okay.
So moving or attempting to move to another design service, architect or engineer, would add a lot of time to this. Smolin is our engineer of record. We went through a qualifications-based selection process that's required by statute, where you put out a request for qualifications, you advertise what your project is going to be, and at that time, we were looking at the bus/maintenance garage addition and a possible board office.
But Kevin, we've also used CT consultants.
No, if you recall, in that qualitative-based selection process, the board ranked CT first and then Smolin second. In that process, you negotiate then with your top choice, and we couldn't come to any agreement. They wanted a lot more money. It was like over $150,000 for the services we were asking at the time, and so the board elected to cease negotiations with CT and move to
CT Consultants was not involved with our school district during the new constructions of the schools and some of the corrective action taken with the shortcomings?
No, our architect during the building of the schools started out as Ricciuti Baylog, and then when Paul Ricciuti retired, it became BSHM Architects, same company, just a different name, out of Youngstown. They designed all the school buildings. The remediation was done through a building envelope recommissioning by some people out down in Columbus. Mays Consulting designed that project, and then Johnson & Johnson, I think John G. Johnson, did the work. The CT Consultants has not been involved in any of that. So the only involvement that I've had with CT Consultants was we tried to negotiate after that first selection process, and we weren't successful. So then we went to Smolin, and the price for the design of the bus/maintenance garage was $59,000, about $100,000 less than what CT Consultants wanted to charge.
Who gave the original design for the house, the conversion for the house?
The only design that we've had for that was done by Serge Grenier.
Who was an employee
of the district as a construction
Before that?
consultant. Before that, he was, before he retired from his construction job with John G. Johnson. And Scott Sidoti was involved in that rough estimate and the drawings that they put together. So I don't know if they got an estimate. There were 3 estimates that were thrown out. The $1 million for the bus/maintenance garage was from Serge and Scott. There might have been one from CT Consultants, and I believe the other one was either from JCI or Hughes Roller. I mean, I never saw any written. We were just informed that there were some estimates given by somebody. One was 1.2 million and one was 1.3 million.
But those were how many years ago?
2016.
So what you're saying is, with Smolin being our engineer of record and the process that we had to go through to get them as that engineer of record, we, if we chose not to work with them, would have to come up with another firm that would have to go through that same process.
We would have to go through the same process, meaning we would have to put together a request, identify the project that we were going to be putting out there, and then get proposals from different firms. The board would review them, and then usually it involves bringing them in and having an interview with them. And then after you go through that process, you identify, however you rank them, 1, 2, 3, however many you have respond, and then you go to that first one and try to negotiate a price for whatever work you want to have done.
And realistically, what is that time frame?
I mean, it can take several months. I mean, first you got to identify the project, put that proposal together, put it out on the street. The revised code is going to require so much time for them to get their proposals in. You review them, you schedule interviews, you meet with them, you rank them, then you begin negotiations. I mean, it could be several months.
Well, if you're not happy with the current services that are being offered to you, which was promised, then it behooves somebody to look elsewhere, not just take what you're being given.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, it was shared why they hadn't come through with the estimates. Why they didn't communicate is beyond me. I don't know. I mean, they could have shared an update that we're having problems pricing things because of the fluctuations that are going on weekly, monthly, and so on. But I really can't comment on that. But I'm just informing the board that, yes, if we want to junk this, it's going to take some time to select a new architect and, see who you get proposals from.
Is it possible to, for myself, I would like to make a motion tonight that if we do not have something by July 1 from Smolin, that we proceed with the pairings offer.
As opposed to looking for another?
As opposed to wasting any more time. That's my motion.
We don't have any idea, we can't make any sort of educated guess as far as what, no, because it's 3 whole different, never mind, I take it back.
And I want to make sure, so JCI is not any type of firm of record for us?
JCI is not a design service engineer or architect. They're a construction company. And they, through different LLCs in partner, Chuck Borsikoff, who was the president, I think his son is the president now of JCI Contractors, and Chuck has many partnerships with Sean Neese, who is a accountant and has a business, and they've done a lot of work on historical preservation buildings, doing a lot of work in the Ashtabula County area right now. They own the property. We pay them rent currently, and just as a reminder, our current rental or lease agreement runs through April of '23.
For the house on Eagle Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, they own that property, they own the Pairings Building, and they have given quotes from JCI, estimates on the turnkey build-to-suit arrangement.
I understand that you don't want to start the whole, I don't either, want to start the whole process over and take another year to get estimates, but I'm not comfortable with just going with Pairings as default either. I think we need to at least look at what the other options are. I don't like having no options.
Is there a second to the motion?
I prefer to wait after our visit to Pairings. I've only been there years ago as for lunch, and I don't remember much of the layout or what they feel or what we feel needs to be done to convert it. I like the building. I mean, I had absolutely no objection to it. If we go with a brand new building, that's going to be a long time.
And a lot of money.
Yeah. And we would own it, though, is obviously the advantage. 'Cause
Well, we'll
we don't
own
know-
this
Well, we
one
would own
too.
Pairings too.
We would own this one. This is a purchase.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We'd own that. We don't currently own the South Eagle Street
No.
house.
But by the time you dig the hole and fill it up again with a building, that's going to take quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
Especially with shortages and the supply chain
Yeah.
issues that are now going on.
That's why I said a year, because if it takes several months, let's say 6, to pick a new company, and then another 6 months for them to, I mean,
It's going to be more than 6 months to build it.
Oh, yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, it could take 6 months just to get on their schedule.
Well, I guess maybe what we should do is, we've waited this long. We have a couple of days to wait until we can see if Smolin comes through with what they've promised.
And do our tours of the,
And do the tours of the buildings. And then I guess we'll have to come to a decision about how we want to move forward. I don't want to start all over either, because that's going to, I agree with everyone else. It's going to take time. It's going to cost more money. I already feel like we've waited too long for Smolin to get back to us. Giving them the benefit of the doubt really didn't get us anywhere, but.
Well, we've
100
waited over 6 months now to even get a response.
Right.
So then, how long are we going to wait for them to get
To do
us
the
what we
work.
need to do the work?
I agree.
I agree, too.
and one nice thing about Pairings, though, is it's already under roof. If we decide to go that way, then the work that would have to be done would be done interior work. And we
No,
wouldn't.
it
do
would
weather.
require an addition. The plan that you were given, that you've seen from September and November, included an addition to that building, built out to the north to add
Okay.
additional space. It's not enough space as it is.
Okay, so there would be some exterior work to be done, but
Mm-hmm.
We're still probably, even if we take the Pairings offer, we're still probably 6 months away or more from even getting in that building.
Yeah.
Or more.
yeah.
I mean, to get a building for less than $1 million right now is probably unheard of for the space we need, which sounds ridiculous. But with the cost of everything and the shortages, to build something new, it's probably not unheard of that we're somewhere between $3 and $5 million right now.
And if we think that any of these prices will come down in the long term, I think we're grasping. Because, you know, you might say that these supply issues will resolve themselves. You might say a lot of these things will kind of settle themselves out, but I don't see that happening in the short term.
And how many companies cut their prices? Okay, the supply chain issues are resolved. Now we're gonna cut 20% off the top of everything, right? We were charging this, now, that's like, I mean, the prices aren't gonna come down. That's my point with that. Waiting won't get us a discount.
Okay, so we have some tours lined up. I think that's our next step. We'll get more information. We'll hope to hear from Smolin. We'll get that information, and then we'll have, or we won't have that information, then we'll have what we have to work with.
Right, I think
Is
we
this
should,
something we can do a special session for, or do we have to wait until July's meeting to decide where to go next? If we tour the buildings tomorrow, we hear from Smolin on Friday, so we'll have all the information we need to make a decision. Do we have to wait until July's board meeting to do that?
Well, July's meeting is only technically.
Well, that's true.
It's not as far away as
3 weeks away.
normal.
That's true, that's true.
And one of the tours is for next week.
Oh, okay.
They couldn't get them all in, we couldn't get them all in tomorrow. So one of them does spill into next week.
Got it.
Okay, is there any further discussion? The motion that was made, I think, dies without a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I appreciate the input. We will move on. Dr. Treharn.
Our administrators and our Director of Maintenance and Transportation will be giving a brief report this evening, and we will start with Mr. Liebert.
All right, so in your packets, you have a couple handouts. The first handout is an update on the test scores. The ELA scores came in and they were added to your sheets. So it looks like there are 20 areas in which we improved from last year's scores and 25 areas in which we outscored the state. The second handout is a breakdown of the allocations for consolidated application for federal programs. Attached is the comparison of the consolidated application for 22 and 23. If you look at that, this year we received in the third column there, the difference, we actually got more in each one of those areas from the previous year. So that just gives you a breakdown of that. And finally, I just want to thank the board, Dr. Treharn, Mr. Lillie, for giving me this opportunity to serve the students and staff at GSS, Geneva Area City Schools. And I also would like to thank the administrative team and staff members who have reached out to me with kind words in the last couple of days. It is appreciated, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liebert, and good luck to you.
Scott, real quick, I'd like to make sure I'm reading this right. So Geneva Area City Schools was at or above the state test across the board?
Not across the board, no. It's what we do in a bunch of areas. If you look at the graph on the first handout, it's where it says versus the state.
Yes.
The ones with the arrows, those are the ones where we were higher than the state average.
Yes.
The other ones that are empty, those were lower than the state average.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then there are some
That's
that we were
okay.
competing with.
Thank you for clarifying. Okay.
Next, our Director of Student Services, Mrs. Porcello.
All right, mine got shortened up quite a bit with the legal, or the legislative update. Just wanted to inform you that I did submit the follow-up information regarding the waiver for the ID unit at Cork. We had applied for a waiver in end of September because our age gap was bigger than the 90 months that we were allowed. And they require a follow-up by June 30th. I submitted it June 10th. So it's been there. I haven't heard anything back. I'm assuming that they'll probably wait until tomorrow to look at anything. House Bill 583, as was reported, is on DeWine's desk. Had some information regarding the Dyslexia Guidebook. changing the word courses to training. I think that the thought behind that is courses is college work, training is professional development. Removing multisensory from the descriptions of the literacy programs. Again, multisensory limits it to 5 or 6 programs versus just using a structured literacy program, which can be stretched across more programs for the schools to use. The changes in the required dates for administration of the screeners for K3 students has been pushed back a year, so now it's at the 23-24 school year versus having to do it next year. And my belief on that is they had to push it back because they have not released a list of approved screeners yet.
Yeah.
As
It's hard to do.
usual. The teachers are required 18 hours of training, beginning with the K1 gen ed and special ed teachers before the beginning of the 23-24 school year. So pretty much that has to happen next year. And I did hear through a legal update that the state of Ohio is expected to release a low-cost or free training, which is amazing because the ones I was looking at would cost about $400 per person. So fingers crossed that they do actually release that in time for people to use it for that first round of training. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I have a question,
Yes,
if I may.
yes.
2, why is art, PE, and music excluded
Oh.
from the dyslexic training?
Because they don't typically do reading instruction in those areas.
Okay.
It is obviously, you're trying to put all of your curricula into all of the areas, but the focus in those is not the reading portion of it.
And the last bullet point, Ohio is expected to release a low-cost, free training.
We don't have any real details on it yet.
Nothing's free, so how?
We don't have any details on it yet. There are trainings that we get to go to as teachers that have no cost for the district, but
We're paying for it somewhere.
we're paying for it somewhere, right, right. But it's
Okay.
better than $400 per person. When you multiply that times the staff in the schools, that's a lot.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Weatherholt.
And Kelly, I apologize for stealing your thunder.
I would just like to take a moment and thank or congratulate the class of 2022. We graduated on June 8th at 6:30. We had a wonderful ceremony. It was pulled off with no hitches or anything of that nature. But there's a lot of things that happen at a graduation that nobody ever sees. So I need to thank a few people for all their hard work. Ann Markajon, Tony Markajon, Kim DeBacker, and John Mansky. Thank you guys very much for checking credits. And of course exam scores, making sure all the seals was in place, and making sure that the setup went with no flaws. I walked up to graduation of practice and go through names and get things ready for me to go. And I looked at Ann and I said, Ann, I don't like the way those flags are sitting. I don't like those trees over there. Without hesitation, Ann immediately just adjusted things and says, does that make you feel better? So I really appreciate all their hard work and tolerating me through those processes.
Yes.
Dave Wright and Vince Rome, because we graduated on a Wednesday, was a little different for us. So they had to take 2 to 3 work days to get the stage out, set up, and do those things. And what a tremendous job they did. Everything was there and waiting for us to go, so we could get it set up. So thank you to them. I don't know how in the past I ever did what I did to read 220 names. They would tally me. They started playing bingo with all the mistakes I would make, and they would chuckle about it. And some of them I got right and they got wrong. So, but because of COVID, one of the positive things that came out of COVID is I quit reading the names. I was really appreciative of that. So Joanne O'Connors, Missy Hall, Brad Hunt, and Brenda Unsanger, thank you guys very much for taking that pressure off of me and reading the names. You guys did a wonderful job. Thank you very much for making graduation a success. I also would like to thank the community. We gave out, I think, 53 scholarships at the scholarship ceremony. I think it was 53 or 54. The local community supports us so much, They gave out over $110,000 to our students to go to college in different needs. A lot of it was just cash-based because they know they just need the help. So thank you to the community very much for doing that. Congratulations to Gabby Selman. Gabby Selman placed 7th in the pole vault this year at state. She will be on a scholarship to Youngstown State. Good luck to Gabby at Youngstown State as she continues her career. I'd also like to congratulate Colin Bowlings. He won the 400 meter race at the state. A male has not won a running event at state since 1926. Congratulations. Congratulations to Renee Tetlow. She's a valedictorian of this class. Congratulations to Carl Gunther. He's a salutatorian of this class. Congratulations to the class of 2022 in general. As you tell your story, write it well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, our Director of Maintenance and Transportation, Mr. Vince Rome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Vince.
Hello. All right. Regarding our summer project and where we're at this time, well, I just wanted to say this for everybody to hear. I don't like to be wrong, but I got started late because the superintendent kept telling me in the beginning of May, hey, you better get going. You better get going planning this. You better get going planning this. And then this is my first year doing it, and I thought, that's going to be way easier than she's thinking. Well, I was wrong. Sorry. But as it does turn out, I'm behind a little bit over at the middle school. I'm behind quite a bit over at GPS, the middle school. As it works out, just by the statements said earlier, they just got their floor scrubber working. We just got it working. It had been down for a couple months because we couldn't get parts for that. But that should start catching us up. That should help us get caught up there. As of today, we began a project of seal coating out in Austinburg and out at Cork. And obviously, we're going to reline those schools after you get the seal coating done, and then we're going to reline the high school this year and the middle school. In the back of the middle school, I noticed some gutter needs over there that needed some attention. We got some people coming in to give us quotes on that. We'll be adding mulch to our elementary school, the playgrounds. That's down quite a bit. And through all these things, I'm really happy to report we're 2/3 of the way through our bus fleet being inspected by the state, and we still have not got one green tag. A green tag means that they're going to put that bus out of service. So I really want to say thank you to Jay, the technician that's over there. He's done a great job at getting that taken care of for us. Our maintenance crew, Dave and Terri, they're doing a really good job, so I want to make sure I give them props and say thank you to them as well. And then kind of break it down. At Austinburg, I'm a little bit behind there. We've got some repairs going on in our parking lot, but again, they'll be taking care of that when they do our seal coating. Out at Cork, we're going to hit the mulch. We got some things that need to just get hit real quick, but they're coming along. Let's see, at the middle school, like I said, we got some things coming in to get some quotes on it. And at the high school level, looks like everything is started except for all the personal level things. Like, we have to get into the kitchens, get the freezers, get underneath them cleaned out, get everything cleaned out. But our projects are moving along, and I'm playing catch up a little bit, but I will be caught up before the end of next week. All those ducks should be in a row. So I think that we're looking pretty good there. Any questions?
When do you expect the remainder of the buses to be inspected?
At the end of this month. In fact, it's supposed to be July 25th, next month. July 25th is the day scheduled. We may have to move that because there was some discussion with Jay and the inspector from the state that we may have to move that a day or two, but it'll still be, I expect all of our buses to 100%, not one of them should get green tag. He's been working very diligently over there on being sure that all these buses are standing tall.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I would invite Officer Cooper to come up. He's going to speak very briefly about Safety Town.
You got it? Okay, thanks. We're doing Safety Town again this year, July 18th and 19th at GPS at 9 a.m. for the first graders, on the 18th, 9 a.m. for the second graders on the 19th. And we're going to have, we're really excited about it because we haven't had it for 2 years. The group that we're going to reach out to and teach Safety Town these 2 years these two groups are the ones that lost it the last 2 years. And the next year we're going to go and do first graders and incoming kindergartners. We're going to do the Safety Town obstacle course. We're going to do school bus safety. We're going to talk about bullying. We're going to talk about vaping. We're going to have an ad there to go over some safety tips. We're also going to have the smokehouse from fire departments, and pretty much every safety force in the area is going to participate. Thank you. Any questions? Come out and watch it if you'd like to, if you have time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the superintendent recommends that the board approve the curriculum recommendation for the 2022-23 school year as presented. Need a motion for that?
Moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that?
This is for an adoption of Character Strong, which is a social emotional learning curriculum that we're adopting for grades 6 through 12, which will help mental health of both our students and staff. And the second piece of this was it was approved for us to offer American Sign Language as a foreign language at the high school. However, I do have to say at this point, for next year at least, I don't think we will be able to offer American Sign Language simply because we haven't not had any applicants for that position. But we are hopeful moving forward that we will have the opportunity to offer that as a foreign language to our students in addition to Spanish.
Okay. So next year we'll just have Spanish?
We will have Spanish, and we are still trying to work through finalizing some details to get the rest of our French students through, especially our 3s and 4s, or who will be 3s and 4s, and 2s will have the option. We did not schedule any freshmen into French 1.
Where are we advertising for an ASL teacher?
Our typical sites, so it goes through the ESC, they send it out, it goes on our website. The ESC also posts it on ODE's platform. Word of mouth, you know, talking with people, talking with other districts who, I know I reached out to one in particular that I knew offered American Sign Language to see if they had any applicants from when they started, and they actually lost their American Sign Language teacher as well. Another district picked that person up, so they left because they wanted to move to the other district. So unfortunately, the original district is not offering it anymore either. Again, I think it's a shortage of all positions, and like I said, teacher education programs are down. I think it was reported 47% that they're down right now, so they're just not graduating enough applicants to fill all these positions, unfortunately.
How long do we have to decide? I mean, could we hire someone August 1st and still do it, or no?
I think that would be tight. I mean, it's possible, but I think the further we get into August, you know, student schedules are pretty much done. I know students have the first few weeks to do schedule changes, but.
So we didn't offer it? Students didn't sign up for ASL for next year?
I believe that is correct.
Right?
Correct, Mr. Weatherholt?
That is correct.
Oh, sorry.
We didn't offer it as a scheduling.
We surveyed the students to see what they wanted to do if they were in French, so that we have options for them available. It was discussed that they would have that as an option. No one was correctly scheduled.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
I'm sorry, what are we voting on? Yes.
curriculum recommendation.
I apologize, yes.
Mrs. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
and Mrs. Metzler.
Yes. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the enclosed elementary school handbook for the 22-23 school year.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz,
Yes.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
and Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
The superintendent recommends that the board approve the enclosed high school student handbook for the 22-23 school year.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
The superintendent recommends approval of an engagement with Full Spectrum Marketing for the 22-23 school year.
Moved.
Second.
And discussion?
Yeah, I thank Dr. Treharn in person, but I want to thank her in public for giving us this informational sheet that outlined each of our options and what the pros were, I guess. I didn't really see any cons, but what the pros were, I appreciated it being laid out like this for us.
So this is, Full Spectrum Marketing is a communication group to help foster a deeper level of community engagement and increase, as well as have more frequent communication to really showcase the overall quality of academics here in Geneva. So they work with a number of other school districts and are certainly a much more cost-effective way to go than hiring a communication person on staff.
And I would just like to add that since I've been on the board at the different events that I've attended with OSBA, that is one of the positions that I was regularly asked if our district has. Do you have a communications manager? No, we do not. A lot of other districts have this person on staff, and I think we are getting a very good deal as opposed to hiring this person in to have Full Spectrum Marketing for the cost that we have it and the access to a staff and group of people. So I appreciate the research that was done on this as well. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Did we have any other individuals who would have liked that as a position? Did we talk to any other individuals for having it as a position or no? Just
Other
hiring
than the
outside?
3 groups, you mean?
No, I mean individuals. I mean, we considered Terri Jankowski, right? As an individual, where did we find her interest in doing it?
She was a recommendation from Hennis Communication.
Right. So she's the only one individually that we consider.
Correct.
Is that still, I don't know, do we still want to consider it as a position in the district? Or we just want to hire the firm and go from there? That's what we're doing, right?
Right. I mean, that's what we need to vote on right now. And I think that my opinion on that is if we were to bring in somebody, even an individual, to be a district employee, we'd be looking at a price that would be more than probably double what this group would be able to give us. And we'd be dealing with one person as opposed to a grouping of people, or a team, I should say, not a group, a team of people that would be working on our behalf.
Yep, I get that. Where are they from? Where are they based?
Akron area.
Akron?
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz,
Yes.
and Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Okay, bus bids for 2 72-passenger complete bus units were opened on Monday, June 20th, 2022 at 11 a.m. at the Board of Education office. The
Move.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I have a question. Someone mentioned to me just in a social situation that there's a grant available to buy electric buses. Does anybody know anything about that? It was Jeff Griffiths who, Jeff, are you here? Yeah, it's out there. Can we, I mean, I know we're doing this already, but just for future reference, this might be a good thing to look into.
There are grants out there. The cost of an electric bus right now is over $300,000.
Okay.
Almost 360.
And you also need
360, all right.
the infrastructure cost to put
Meaning?
in charging stations.
Charging station.
And you're never going to get away from diesel buses altogether because you also would have to know that there's charging stations between point A and point B when they go on field trips and so on. And in Ohio, there, you know, I don't believe that there is that much infrastructure yet, so that would have to be developed. It's a very high-cost alternative, and I'm also told, even by bus companies that may be making these buses, that you know the shelf life of the battery is 7 years, maybe 6 to 7 years, and when that battery goes, it's a very high-cost item.
So it's the same debate as with electric cars.
Of course.
They're more expensive,
Sure.
there's not enough charging stations, blah, all that stuff, same thing, right? So I just wanted to put it out there that that's, if we got, I don't know if it would cut the cost in half or whatever it would be. But I just wanted to mention it, because, you know.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Because, for information's sake.
Yep, thank you.
Just the board has the bid tabulation form. The next highest, well, we only had 2 bids, one from Rush Bus Centers, the other from Myers Equipment. Their bid would have been $215,424 after trade-ins. So the recommendation is to go with the bus, 2 buses from Rush Bus Centers. And as you may recall, we also had available to us from the Ohio Department of Education 2 $45,000 grants for these buses. So a total of $90,000 that will reduce that cost down to about $104,000 if we go with the trade-ins. And as you see in the recommendation, we will also attempt, we have the trade-in amounts, which are only a total of $2,500 for the 2 buses. We will attempt to place these on the public surplus auction website and see if we can get more than what the than the trade-in amounts. So if we can, then we won't trade the buses in.
Kevin, is that,
Yes.
is that normal or average for, I mean, one bus is 17 years old, one is 14 years old, and they're only offering, while Rush is offering $2,000 for one and $500 for another. Is that in the ballpark?
In the past, we've gotten roughly that $2,000 or $2,500 per bus. The $500, I've been informed that that bus is not drivable. So it's really just being sold for parts, and whoever takes that will have to tow it, possibly off-site. So that's why the offer is only $500.
Is that the only bus that we have that's not drivable right now, or do we have others?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I've just been informed. The question was asked, why $500 for that? The other company had done $1,200 each. So on total, they were $100 less on the trade-ins, you know, with $1,200 each bus. The companies look at the buses, look at the condition, you know, how much they're going to be able to turn them over and sell for. And that goes into probably them determining the price they can pay for trade-in. But as I said, we're going to attempt to use this auction website to see if we can get a little more for this. The last time we sold a bus through auction, we only got $2,000, and 400 of that 25%, or 500 of that 25% went to the auction company. The auction company that we plan on using this time does not charge any fee to the seller. They pass it on to the buyer. So whatever the bid is, that's what we get. So if we got a bid for, you know, as long as we get a bid for more than $2,000, that will be our bottom price. Then we would be able to get more for that, but nothing would be taken from that.
So the total cost can only go down. The auction option, if it's, obviously, if it's less money, you'll go with the trade-in.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask, the delivery approximation, 11 to 13 months, is that typical, or are we because of supply issues?
They are longer now, and
Okay.
that was the bus that we didn't accept.
Oh,
Ours
right,
is
okay.
anywhere from 180 to 100 to 365 days, so half a year to a year.
Yeah.
And yes, that is supply and labor shortages.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
The superintendent recommends that the board renew its membership in the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding for the 22-23 school year.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes. The treasurer recommends adoption of the appropriations as presented for the fiscal year 21-22 to be considered permanent appropriations.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
The treasurer recommends approval of advances and transfers between funds and the authorization of such transfers as needed.
Move.
Second.
Discussion?
So this year, for the first time, there will be no need to transfer to the lunchroom, as we discussed previously, with the increased reimbursements on the Seamless Summer Option Program that they're funded on. They've received quite a bit more money with everything being free. We will have a much higher than normal transfer to athletics, over $89,000. Revenues were down, especially in the fall with COVID and so on. And costs were up because of transportation. We had to use a lot of purchase service transportation for some of our field trips, and that drove their total cost up. So we've spent more in the athletic budget than we have in the past.
Why did we have to do purchase service
We
transportation
had
more?
nobody to drive field trips, so it was either, cancel the games or try to find alternate transportation. So in a number of instances, the athletic director was able to arrange alternate transportation.
Because we didn't have buses, or
We didn't have bus drivers to take the field trips.
Right, yeah.
because why?
The field trips are put out on a round-robin basis. If nobody bids on the trip, then we have no driver.
Bus drivers.
Bus drivers.
So, okay, so we allow our individual bus drivers to bid on them to see whether they want to do them?
Right.
Then if no one wants to do it,
And they don't want to do it?
Not all trips were filled.
Okay.
And then the only other transfers are regular transfer to band. It covers the cost of the band field trips to football games or to camp, which they didn't have that cost, which is about $2,200.
Okay.
yeah, I want to clarify, that wasn't a criticism, it was a question so you put these events out and bus drivers can choose to do them instead of in addition to their regular route, and so they chose not to do them.
Or there might not have been people available to do them because we're already short on drivers.
Yes, okay.
For the lunchroom, what is our typical transfer at the end of the year? What if
Usually, as of late, it was $60,000, $70,000 typically.
Okay, any further discussion?
So I'm looking at the lunchroom thing also. This year, we served, if I'm looking at this right, a total of 29,000 lunches, but last year we only did 23,000 lunches.
That was for the month of May.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Are you
Total
asking why
lunches
the
served
increase?
in May of '22 compared
the
to May of
increase this year.
2021.
So I guess I would just say keep in mind that all meals were free for students this year.
And they were last year.
Well, they were last year too, weren't they?
Yes.
Because of COVID.
Well, that
Yes.
is true.
Yes.
But we also had students that were online and not in the buildings always
So we
eating,
do have
plus
more
we
students
had
back.
Recovery Wednesdays, so, you know, we didn't have as many students in the building every day
Right.
to participate in lunch and breakfast.
And that's why the increase with more breakfast this year, vice last year also?
That would be my assumption. Mrs. Jones would know better.
And I think she'll be here next month to give her report, Rick.
But our labor costs decreased this year. This year is 51.5, and
Well, you're
last year, or last month,
Yeah, you're
year
just
May, it
about-
was 53.5.
For that particular month.
Less employees? Same number of school
There's
days?
no, I don't believe there were any reductions this year in 21, 22. Actually, you know, we added a cafeteria monitor, but we used ESSER funds
At GPS.
for that because they were in two different, they had to serve in order to space the students out in two different areas, the gymnasium as well as the cafetorium.
Okay.
Mr. Arndt, I would say that when Mrs. Jones comes next month, I think it would be good to ask her those questions. But I do believe that when I met with her back in the fall, there was at least one position that hadn't been filled at that time. So I don't know if maybe there was still one position. I know there were some that were added, and we talked about that. But certainly, or she had just filled the last opening, and they were short on the subs. So, I mean, if there's people out and then they don't have the subs, that could be part of it. So I think we could ask her that next month and get clarification.
I know her management and oversight skills are incredible, so we did better May in 2022 than we did in May of 2021. Is that because of her efforts, or is that because something changed?
Yeah, I think we can ask her that next month. Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
The treasurer recommends the 22-23 fiscal year appropriations effective July 1 to be established at 50% of the 21-22 expenditures.
Moved.
Second.
And discussion? Okay, and so this says details will be presented at the next regular meeting, so next month you'll have more.
Right, after the fiscal year is closed out, we set up those appropriations, and then you would have a resolution available at that time.
Okay,
And these are to be considered temporary. These get us through the first 3 months of the year before the board adopts the permanent appropriations in September.
okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes?
The treasurer recommends waiving the first reading and the adoption of the enclosed cash balance policy.
Moved.
Second?
And discussion.
Hopefully, you had time to look this over. We've talked about this for a long time. It was one of the objectives decided upon in the Strategic Planning Finance Committee. As the policy states, operating the district with fiscally sound management practices is integral to the ongoing well-being of the school district. In looking at a lot of different policies that are out there, There's obviously a range, and there's obviously a number of reasons for having a general fund cash balance policy or reserve. One of the main ones that it's not going to affect us right now because we have debt already issued, but the rating agencies such as Moody's or Standard & Poor's like to see a cash balance policy in place, a minimum of at least 10% or higher. And when you don't have that, a lot of times that can result in a lower rating and more cost on your debt when it's issued. Now, you know, we're paying off our debt at this time, and I don't anticipate any more refundings or anything. We did an advance refunding a number of years ago, and then a more recent in 2019 refunding negotiated, so that we've cut down on the debt, on the interest, as well as on the millage that the taxpayers have to pay for that bond issue for the new high school to kick off the OSFC project. But it helps with that financial picture from them. But the base of the policy is to have a target, and right now we can, if you look at the monthly cash balances report, you can see the different peaks and valleys of our cash balance by month. Our low end is usually in June and in December, because we get the property taxes loaded early in each half. So January, February, and March, we're receiving property tax payments, and then again in July and maybe August. But after that, you would usually only have your foundation payments. But with the school district income tax, we add a month in the middle, since we get a distribution in April and we get a distribution in October. That keeps that balance up a little bit. But in November and December, you're living off of just your bi-monthly foundation payments. So you see the valleys there. Based on our current 5-year forecast, we can maintain, it's already in the forecast, a cash balance that is 25%, which would be the same as 90 true days cash. I've seen some districts as high as 33% to 50%, as well as businesses such as OHSA. They're actually looking to maintain a cash balance of 100% and building up to that. So that is the recommendation. And as it says at the end of the policy, upon receiving such notification from the treasurer, a plan will be developed by the board. That notification is anytime the ending cash balance would drop below that 25% in the current year or the next 3 projected years of the 5-year forecast. And upon that notification, then the superintendent, treasurer, and the board would need to get together and decide how they were going to avoid that.
Yeah, so that's my concern. So that discussion is going to entail what?
Well, anytime in the past that you saw a drop in revenues, and most of the time it was because of reductions in state funding, you had to either look at trying to find a new revenue source, such as a levy, or reductions in expenditures. Now, obviously, I don't like throwing this out there, but obviously you can amend your cash balance policy as well.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's why you set it, to try to maintain a certain level so you have that built-in protection and you're not having to do this constantly. You can look out in the future, but still setting it at 25%, 90 true days cash. During the talk of the Finance Committee during the strategic planning, and Mrs. Ortiz was there, at that time when we were meeting, we could barely maintain 30 days. The goal during that committee was hopefully we could get up to 60 days. But because of the things that have happened here with the influx of ESSER funds that has allowed our general fund balance to grow while we restore cuts with ESSER money, we're in a position right now that we can maintain throughout the whole 5-year forecast the 25%.
I think it's necessary because prior to most of you being on the board, not all of you, the cuts that, well, no, 2 of you, I guess. The 3 of us did the cuts. The cuts are not fun. So a policy like this will allow us to realign things and figure things out before we have to make cuts like we had to make when we had to make them. Because that was the worst day ever.
I guess I look at it like, wouldn't those types of cuts be what would be discussed if you're starting to look at numbers that go below 25%?
Not to the degree we had to make the cuts, because he said we couldn't even maintain 30 days back then.
In the past, Mrs. Metzler, I would say, boards usually waited until the last minute to do something. When things got dire and you couldn't pass a levy, then all of a sudden you're in a position. I mean, if you look at I've passed out a history before, and even on some of these, this history goes back to 2016, but we were down to 1.8 million at one point, and even, let's see, not on this one, but lower, when we first tried to pass levies back in 2011 and 2012. I mean, we were dropping below 32 days catch. And at that point, the next year on the 5-year forecast, we were showing going into the negative, running out of money, basically. So then you had to make big cuts by looking at it more in advance and setting that target, to the current year and 3 years. You can make minor adjustments and hopefully avoid that big cut. You can look at repurposing revenue sources, changes in different things that may not result in major, like cuts to personnel, but other things. It just seems to be a good business practice to have a policy in place and to have it at a level that gives you a little more in the planning.
My only other question is that when I was reading this, I actually looked down to the bottom because all of our policies kind of go through, Neola? And this was not. So was there not a policy? I mean, I know it's a new policy, but is this a policy that would then be reviewed by Neola like our other policies? And
I don't think it has to be reviewed by Neola. It actually, I've used templates from other districts and molded them to our use, and some of them have Neola and some of them have OSBA. It is the board's policy, and it would be turned into Neola to become, to place it on the policy book online and so on. But the format of the policy is fine.
okay. Any other discussion?
I just want to thank Mr. Lillie for putting this together because this was a work in process and I appreciate it.
Same.
And I think your question, Mrs. Metzler, what you see on a lot of those policies from Neola are the legal references. There's no requirement in the revised code to have a cash balance policy. So you won't have those types of references on this policy.
Okay. Okay, any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
The treasurer
Madam President, may we jump back to N10, the previous one? I have a concern with that. Our first speaker tonight told us about bus drivers taking multiple shifts, so they're overworked. And now, our treasurer is telling us that we have to outsource transportation because we don't have people to take courses. How many bus drivers are we short?
I don't think Mr. Rome is here.
I mean, there's a concern about safely transporting the students. We don't have the numbers or enough people who want to volunteer to fill our different trips that we take, so we have to outsource for that. How many more drivers do we need, and what is our problem with getting drivers?
I believe we're down to 4 that we're still in need of, but we also have had, throughout the year, potentially people might be out on FMLA, so even though they are a driver, they might not be driving due to other reasons. At the start of the year, I believe we were at 11 that we were down. And to be quite honest, I think it's with anything else. You know, we've put out for school counselors, and we still have a position that we can't fill because we don't have any applicants. The American Sign Language, we don't have any applicants. I mean, I think that it's still an issue, is shortage. Shortage of people, shortage of workers.
Are there shortages in other districts?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Bus
Okay, so
drivers
it's
are
across
needed.
the board, it's
Yeah.
not Geneva schools?
No.
Yeah. Bus drivers are needed across the United States.
Right.
Well, and that's what I also believe. So
Some places we're trying to get the National Guard to come in and drive.
is there a solution?
Do you want to get your CDL?
Hmm?
I said, would you like to get your CDL?
I had to figure out
Yeah,
why
it's-
why is that?
it's a
like
shortage.
I've heard about a shortage of bus drivers for years now.
For years.
I didn't hear what they said.
Our cuts, when we had to make
Okay,
our
thank
cuts
you.
and we had to go down to state minimum transportation, when we had to make those cuts, we had to, some of the cuts were our drivers when we went down to state minimum. And we knew at that time, even though those cuts we had to do because we couldn't afford and the state was in here telling us we had to make the cuts, it was the worst time to make the cuts because drivers were already nationwide shortage for everything, and here we are laying them off, and of course, we're not gonna get them back.
Which was not something we want to do. We
No,
were told to do
no,
it by the state.
The state told us, make the cuts, get in line with your budget, or we're coming in. So that's why the cuts happen. State minimum transportation happened. Worst day ever, but it had to happen.
And I will also say, in the times that I have visited the transportation garage and had conversations with Mrs. Leonard, and most recently it was in December, one of the first conversations I had with her was exactly that. You know, you lost bus drivers and we had to cut bus routes. And then when you try and bring those bus routes back, some of those people found other jobs elsewhere, so it was harder to get them back. And then COVID happened. And so then you lose your bus drivers because school was closed. So then you start your kids back to school, and there are people that did not want to come back to driving because of COVID. And we were already in the midst of a shortage of people, and so you had 2 back-to-back almost situations that made it much more difficult to get people back in and wanting to drive. So back in December, I just looked up my notes, she had 4 people that were at one point in the process of getting their CDL. Now, I don't know how many of them actually followed all the way through with that, but that was, I mean, it was being actively worked on back in December. I mean, it was a conversation that we had then, knowing that we had difficulties. She had 17 routes at that time, plus St. John and ATEC, and she had 16 drivers, but on that particular day, she only had 12. So for whatever reason, those other 4 drivers were out, that happens. So it makes her short for her 17 routes. But 2 were going through class at that time, and 2 were starting class like the next week when I met with her. So, I mean, there was this active push to get people in. Now, whether they finished the program, I don't have that answer. But, I mean, she has been actively trying to recruit, at least as far as what I have been informed of in my visits with her and Mr. Rome.
Okay, and Sally, has there been any headway made with the CDL licensing at ATEC that we talked about a month or two ago?
The CDL licensing teaching is quite an elaborate process. We do have one of the machines that they can use to simulate driving, but it is an old one and would have to be refurbished. We need a huge expanse of paved land, parking lot type things to move semi-sized vehicles, because these are related. We'd have to do the semis and buses. And you need acres of paved property to do it. And then there are all kinds of state regulations that have to be met as far as who is training them. And it's just a very complicated, it's not been given up yet, but it just takes a long time for all the pieces to fall together. But I approached them about this at the beginning of the school year when I saw we were short on drivers. And I said, is there anything we can do? Because Ashtabula and Conneaut are both represented on the ATEC board, and they were both having the similar problems. So it's been moving, but it's been moving slowly.
Has any part of public education ever paid for drivers' CDL as a future driver? Has that ever been approached, done? Kevin?
Pay for their training, you mean? Pay for them to get their CDL?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We do pay, but the way we pay is they get half the reimbursement after driving for us for 6 months, and then the full reimbursement for their expenses
So
after
we do.
a year.
Okay.
Because in the distant past, when they used to reimburse them sooner, drivers would get it and then go into Lake County or something and get a job driving there. So I don't know if every district does that, but their expenses are reimbursed. They have to come up with them at the beginning, but then they'll be reimbursed as they drive.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so our next, the treasurer recommends the following funds be appropriated according to the adopted budget.
Moved.
Second.
Is there discussion?
You heard Mr. Liebert, and he presented it in his packet that he handed you, comparison of the grants that we've received so far for next year. They're up a little bit in most cases, so that's a good thing.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes. The treasurer recommends the board approve the disposal of the attached list of assets.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. What does it mean dispose of? Are these garbage, or do we sell them? Do we give them away? What do we do with stuff?
We're, as a public entity, we're not permitted to just give things away.
I understand that.
So,
I'm asking, how do we do this?
These are items that Mr. Brigard has been working on for months. Right now, they're taking up space, some over in his office, and I believe some maybe here at the high school. These are all, in some cases, there are some items that are broken and need to be trashed. In other items, you see a lot of phones, and as you recall, we've replaced our phone system some time ago. We now use a cloud-based phone system, so all the phones we had are obsolete. The other thing that you see in great quantity on here are wireless access points. The wireless access points, according to Mr. Brigard, were end of life 2 years ago, so we've been stretching those out. They've all been replaced. And so he doesn't even feel that these, in order to use a wireless access point, they have to be licensed, that these could even be licensed. But he plans on most of these, again, trying the auction site. The auction site is good not just to sell items, but scrap dealers look on there too. So if you have a good quantity of items, they might buy them for scrap. So he had an elaborate spreadsheet. I didn't bother to put it out, but he had it all broken down by the different things and what he planned on putting on the auction site, what he planned on scrapping, or what just needed to go in the trash. The question was asked me sometimes, this past year, we have sold nothing. Right? We have had no money come in for trying to sell anything. I think Mr. Brigard has been too busy to worry about posting things, and that's why he wanted to start with this. His hope was with the board's accepting this list of items for disposal, that he will be able to work on it this summer, trying to see what we can get for them.
I see. So this is the first step, and then Mr. Brigard takes over actually getting rid of the things.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
In the past, years past, we have sold items or sold things for scrap. As I mentioned earlier, we sold a bus via a different auction site. Since we did the training for this public surplus auction, we have not put anything up for auction. And so, yes, we would start here with a number of the items that are on here.
Okay.
The computers, a lot of things, like I said, cassette recorders and so on are broken. Routers were replaced, so there are a number of routers or router-related items on here that have all been upgraded. So most of these things are just taking up space and need to go.
Well, it should be noted that there's assets on here as old as 1998, and then there's some outdated telephones as new as 2018. So believe it or not, that's 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, Jared noted that he tries to keep things as long as he can. And just so you know, he has had companies contact him about buying old stuff. But when he tells them what we have, they usually say, never mind. Not anything they were interested in. So he, you know, through those experiences, he has an idea as to what might have value and what doesn't. So he'll attempt to get whatever we can out of these. I was saying in the past, we have sold a lot of items for scrap, but most of the time, we end up just lucky enough that we don't have to pay to have the items removed. The companies pick them up for scrap and maybe get enough value out of them that we don't have to pay them to remove the items. So that's happened quite a few times.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Just a personal question. Why did we have 3 wooden doll houses?
For little kids.
Anybody know?
Kindergartners,
There you
right?
go.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
For
Thank
little
you.
kids.
I'd also like to ask that we have some follow-up on this in the next couple of months as Mr. Brigard is investigating the sale of these items on the auction site. Whether it was successful or not, I would like to ask that we be made aware of that.
Sure.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
The superintendent recommends approval of the enclosed revision to the central office staff contract guidelines.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. This is the base salary piece that we were talking about? Do I have a piece of paper for that? I didn't see the paper.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
It's, we received it.
You received it.
It was emailed,
Yeah.
right?
Emailed.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
The superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 21-22 contract year.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
The superintendent recommends that the board hire Scott A. Liebert on an administrative assignment.
Moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
This is to train the replacement, right?
Yes, to provide a transition, and certainly I would also like to take this time to thank him for his year here with me, and I certainly wish him the best of luck in his new position and understand his reasons for leaving. And more so, I appreciate the fact that he is willing to come back the last week of July to help transition the new person in the position.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzler,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
and Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
The superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 22-23 contract year.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, we do have, I believe they're both here, two of our new teachers, Chelsea Kretz. Are you out there? Yes, thank you. Thank you for standing. So Chelsea will be our new high school English teacher. She comes to us from Brooklyn City Schools, and most recently, and prior to that, she was at Westside School of the Arts and Richmond Heights, as well as spent some time teaching in Florida. She is a graduate of Ohio University. And is Shannon Valdez here as well? Okay, I thought maybe she was going to come this evening, but nonetheless, we are happy to have her. She is our new district EL teacher, English language teacher. She spent multiple years teaching in Mexico, and most recently, she actually has been subbing with us this year since her move back to the area, and she graduated from Walden University.
Welcome. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler.
Abstain.
Welcome aboard, Ms. Kretz.
The superintendent recommends the following volunteer coaches for the 22-23 school year.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler.
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Okay, it is now time for the second hearing of the public. If anybody would like to step forward to the mic, all of the same parameters apply this time as well.
Ann Craig, 479 North Avenue, Geneva. I'm really mystified by the fact that all of you think it's okay to spend over $1 million plus for a building for 12 people, and you won't spend less than $60,000 for 3 floor machines for 3 different schools? How do we have $1 million for a building and not $60,000 for floor machines that are greatly needed, are old, and they're being put back together constantly? These are keeping our floors and such clean. I don't get it.
Thank you.
My name's Terri Grimmett, 880 West Morgan Road in Jefferson. Mr. Arndt, you asked why drivers aren't taking trips. We start at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Most of the drivers work cafeteria midday, do their afternoon routes, which are very stressful because we're doubled and tripled up, and work till 4:30 in the afternoon. Then you want us to take a trip till 9, 10 o'clock at night, get us home about 10:30. What incentive do we have to do it? You're willing to pay outsourced busing thousands of dollars to do it, but you're not offering it to your own drivers. There's no incentive for me. We struggle. We can't get our purchase orders. We can't get our buses fixed because we don't get our purchase orders onto. They fight for them. They have to fight to get a purchase order to fix a bus. It's ridiculous. You want us to give to you, but you aren't giving to us.
Thank you.
I have a comment. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I allowed to? Excuse me a second.
Jim Chafin, 5412 Football Richmond Road, Rock Creek, Ohio. I've been attending these meetings since, well, this whole school, since last September. I've heard a lot of questions asked over and over and over again. A lot of them the same questions. And my hat's off to you, Mr. Arndt. You wanted a question answered about the bus drivers? You got it answered. Why can't the people get answers? They ask you over and over again the same question. Why can't you give an answer, Mr. Arndt? Mr. Ortiz? Superintendent? Somebody? Not everybody all at once. Give some answers. I think you answered it right there.
What's he saying, Amber? I can't hear what he's saying.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Some of the board members did not hear that last speaker. His question
I
was,
didn't hear
why
anything he said.
is he not, why, when he's been at these meetings for the last few months, are we not answering questions?
Madam President, would you like to explain to him? And I believe that you have on several times in the past.
Yes, this is the hearing of the public. We intend to hear what the public has to say. We do not engage in a back and forth discussion after there are questions raised from the public. However, in previous months, we have circled back around to many of the questions that have been asked in the next meeting, or we have actually put out frequently asked questions on our website.
I'm not disputing your word, ma'am. All I know is I have not, at the meetings I've been to, I have not seen any answers given back to the
Right.
questions that were asked.
Yeah, that's correct. They are not given back at the immediate time that the question is asked. As I said in
Or
the
the month after. Or the month after, I haven't seen any questions.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry that you haven't heard the answers to the questions, but we have circled back. Dr. Treharn makes a point of trying to speak during the other section of our meeting to circle back to some of those questions that have been asked multiple times that we can give answers to.
I would appreciate it.
Sure.
I'd like to make a comment, if I may. I don't know if this is out of order or not, so. My question is, I've asked many times for those unanswered questions. I would like to hear what those are. If there are unanswered questions that we haven't done at the following meeting or at our frequently asked questions thing on our website, I'd like to know what those questions are that aren't being answered. I've gone through my whole list of things I write
Well, I
down
will see to it that you get them.
all the time, and
I will see to it that you get them.
say it again.
I will see to it that you get those questions.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the.
He'll see to it that you get
Yes,
the questions.
please. Please do.
I said I will see to it that you get those questions.
Thank you. I would like that. Thank you very much.
Michelle Craig, 200 Cherrywood Circle, Geneva, Ohio. I just have one request, that this board make a motion to repay booster groups that are purchasing items to clean our buildings and reimburse these organizations. That is not the intent of any group that is developed to support student activities and engagement within the classroom. I can speak to the fact that I try to support all of the fundraising events in the various buildings, whether my children are there or not. And it really upset me to hear that today. I was very upset about that earlier, knowing that we have $3.9 million in the general fund, and we're talking about moving money from accounts to accounts, and I understand all that, but we're talking about a vacuum cleaner. This is not rocket science. You have to vacuum the floor. And our parent group should not be paying for it. So it'd be wonderful to hear this board make a motion to reimburse that group for the purchase of that vacuum cleaner. Per usual, no one looks up except for Mrs. Metzler. Thank you. Once again, nothing happening, nothing getting done. Par for the course. Thanks.
Has a reimbursement been submitted? I don't know. I mean, that's not at our level.
The PO has been denied over and over again, and after the custodian asked over and over again, a parent group bought a vacuum cleaner that is not adequate. They need an industrial vacuum cleaner to do their job. And as far as the list, I'll make sure you get one. It's been posted every single month.
Thank you.
Kirsten Hansen, 103 Pepperidge Drive.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Thank you, sorry. I don't use these things frequently. Kirsten Hansen, 103 Pepperidge Drive. I just wanted to speak and say that we can't secure a, am I too close, too far? I don't know.
Closer. We can't hear you.
Closer? Okay.
That's much better.
There you go.
We cannot secure a foreign language teacher because our district, it sucks. We have no good benefits to give them compared to the other districts. And it's disgusting that our kids don't have this option for multiple languages. I had 3 12 years ago when I was at this school. I had Spanish, French, and Latin. Like, what? How can you be proud of this district when this is what you're giving us? First off, these meetings, they come off as a joke. Coming to these is almost comedic to listen to just the banter that you guys give us. The back and forth, I don't know who's gonna make this decision. It gets old, and we want answers. We want to hear what you guys have to say to the problems that you're not addressing these. Sorry, I don't do public speaking. It's baffling how you guys can sit up here and like question why our bus drivers aren't taking these jobs when, like, how can you think that like they want to do these jobs, these field trips after an entire day from being with these students at like 5:30 in the morning? And like, what? I don't understand the logic in any of your brains. And the whole room agrees, and the whole community agrees. And it's unfortunate. As for the Pairings Building, which is in a really nice part of Geneva, Mr. Arndt, the proposed layout that you guys have, you're going on about this addition that you have to add to it. Why can't you just make it work? Like we do all the time. Like if I can't fit everybody into a building, like I try to make it work because time's ticking and you don't have an actual place to be because your rent is whatever your rental issue is. So like, can't all of you just squeeze into the building and play nice? It's not that hard. You know, like I saw the footprint for the proposed media center changes. And Mr. Lillie, you had like 4 assistants' offices. There were like 4 bathrooms. I don't have that many in my house. Like, some of the stuff that you guys come up with is just asinine, and I'm tired of it. My kids have to grow up in this. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old in this community, and I have to make sure that they are safe and secure in this wonderful community, and I can't do that with you people and the way that you run things. Thank you.
Is this good volume?
Keep talking, we'll see.
Thank you. Brock Pearson, 56 Erie Street. There's been a move.
I'm sorry, what is that?
56 Erie Street. I promised I wouldn't talk today, so I'm going to keep this short. Today we've heard reasons for staffing issues as being a percentage change that's congruent with the United States. Obviously, I guess we're factoring mean and median data. Luckily, I went to a school that taught me about data sets, and we live in an area with disproportionately more people with CDLs. In fact, I had a conversation with someone who used to work with you guys. He now works for Jim Doherty Trucking. He takes on daily driving chores. And those people have extra time that they are constantly looking to go with Raymond Cutstone, maybe pick up some jobs with waste management. There are actually third-party dispatch sites now that these people look at. And what they say is, I have a truck, I have a CDL, I want to take this load for this distance and I'll get paid this much per mile. A lot of those people worked for us as bus drivers, and they're not coming back. So when I hear that it's COVID, there's a bus shortage, we have, you know, a bus that has a broken EGR valve that would cost $1,400 to fix, kept in Painesville for a number of months while we're also purchasing 2 new vehicles. We don't have proper drop-off slips making these people liable. And then I go on Indeed, and I don't see a single posting at all. Indeed is like the #1 face for jobs. It's like the Google for job searches. We don't have anything on Monster. We don't have anything on Google. And we're saying, well, we're doing the county resources. We're depending on word of mouth. That was relevant in maybe 1999 to 2012, but that doesn't work anymore. There are aggregate postings. What I mean is you post it one place and it aggregates to other forums. That should be the first thing that we're utilizing. Has no upfront cost. You can make these for free. I also have a problem with, we're talking about the problems of people and why people just don't want to work, when the people who are taking all of that are right there watching you and shouting answers to the questions that you have, but we just keep rolling. It makes people feel like their entire life's worth of knowledge on how to fix these things can just be fixed by thousands of dollars of outsourcing. So that's the source of their frustration. And I'm not picking on you guys this time. This is probably the only productive meeting I've seen this year, where I was actually compelled by the questioning for the contracts, for the contingency vote that Ms. Ortiz had proposed, for why we were looking at cash balance transfers to Ms. Metzler. But what I am saying is there's still a huge communication gap, and it creates a lot of animosity. We don't know what the pretext for what you do is unless we understand it. And same with the people behind me. These are good, hardworking people. When I went and asked them about the 2 bus issues, I had people that worked with these come up to me immediately. When I was asking about what's an issue with the drop-off slip, I thought that was a menial, stupid issue when I first heard about it. Well, then I learned that, have you ever asked a 17-year-old to give you an honest answer when you're a substitute teacher, or asking for just general decorum? Be like, where do you live? He's like, the moon. I mean, that's who we're trusting to fill these out, but then it creates an insurance liability for you, and it creates an employment liability for these people. And to go back to it, we live in an area where Euclid is realistically not far down the road. There's a CDL school there. If we're having problems with ATEC, why not supplement that resource with ATEC, bring them in, say, what could we do to make an annexation? What can we do to replicate this, to put more people in the workforce? What would that look like for us? These conversations shouldn't be something that a 30-year-old paralegal is telling you. And I know that people are having these conversations at work for you. So, and I'm not yelling at you to please listen to us, but please, like, we're not just out to get you. These people know what they're doing.
Brock, if I may, shouting it from the audience doesn't help me. I don't know if it helps anybody else. But shouting out a solution, that doesn't help. If you have a solution to something, tell me and we'll consider, but just shouting out, hire more, or pay them more, or whatever, that doesn't help.
Respectfully, as someone who's not a board member, it's not my job nor my burden to do that.
Okay. I don't know how we can listen to suggestions if we don't hear them. All right, good. Oh, Lord.
And we'll move on to the other.
I have another, Mrs. Metzler. I'd like to back up. There was so many staffing and all of that I missed the section that I wanted to ask a question about. So I'm referring back to number 18, personnel actions, and I think it's, I don't know what letter it is, I apologize, it's such a long list. Oh, now there's number 4. I guess it's D4, 18D4, extracurricular assignments. So we talked about bringing back some supplemental contracts, and so I wanted to revisit that. So here's the list of supplementals that we are hiring for next year. And I don't see majorette advisor on here, and I was curious about that. And also, I had a really good discussion with Mr. Weatherhall and Mr. Markajon, I don't know, a month or 2 ago, about things that they'd like to see brought back as far as supplementals, and I wanted to know when would be a good time to discuss those. So where's the major ed advisor, and is there going to be an opportunity to talk about more supplementals being reinstated?
So the answer to the major ed advisor is we have been trying to work that out with GATA. We have given them our latest proposal and are waiting to hear back from them. So we have not come to consensus on that, so that is why that is not on here.
Okay.
And as far as the further discussion, I'm happy to sit and speak with Mr. Weatherholt and Mr. Markajon to hear their ideas at any time they would like to schedule that with me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we back to other?
Yes, we're
I'm
back to
sorry.
other.
I apologize. So in my report, I have quite a few things here to report on, so I will try and get through these fairly quickly. Some events since our May board meeting, the high school had a job fair with 22 vendors in attendance. It was a very nice turnout, and all students by grade level were able to attend at different times throughout the day. We had both of our awards and scholarship assemblies at the high school at the end of the year. Mr. Weatherholt commented earlier, so I won't reiterate the amount of money that was given out, but certainly we appreciate all of the groups that donated money for our students. Of course, we had graduation, our graduation, as far as I was able to attend the graduation at ATEC, which was very nice to see how they do that. Middle school had awards, 5th grade had awards, there were clap outs at the elementaries, kindergarten programs. There were so many different events throughout the different buildings. It was really nice to see them wrap up the school year. Also, before staff left, we did have an optional CPR and AED training, and we had almost 80 people attend, so I want to thank NAD for facilitating that. And literally the day after staff finished up, we had a 2-day administrative event planning in order to start thinking about and preparing for next school year. Epipen Boxes, if you have not seen the article, I believe was in the newspaper already. I had the pleasure of meeting a student from Madison High School. His name was Aiden Naniger, and he just finished his sophomore year. He talked to me how he has food allergies and started a project a few years back in order to raise funds to put Epipen Boxes in the schools. And when the company that he had purchased those from had heard about his story, they donated even more. And so he had reached out to me, and I was very happy to meet both he and his mom. They donated 7 to our district, so 1 will be going in each of the buildings over the summer, as well as the bus garage and board office. And additionally, his mother was kind enough to provide the information on how districts can apply to get free EpiPens to put in the boxes. So again, I really appreciate the fact that they donated those, as well as the opportunity to meet him. In light of some recent events, I wanted to just reassure everyone that we have been and are looking to increase layers of security. So just to run through some that you can hear, what we currently have in place, as well as what we are looking to putting in place. We do have a district safety committee in place. Of course, we partner and communicate with local agencies. Every classroom has a phone, and our phone system has the capability to do all calls internally. We have radios in all the buildings with a direct link to the police. Visitors must use an entry button to obtain entrance, and then, of course, report directly to the main office. We utilize the Safer Ohio School tip line, which is an anonymous tip line that can be accessed 24/7 by anyone that wants to make a tip. Staff partake in the annual drills to practice and review protocols with students. Of course, we have our resource officer, who is here this evening, Officer Cooper, who also spoke about the safety town. Our classrooms have door barricades. There are cameras on the buses, both in and outside the buildings as well. And some things on the horizon we just purchased. I know I've talked about this at prior board meetings, but we finally came to a decision and decided which system that we're going with. So we did purchase a visitor entry system for all buildings. So starting next school year, visitors will need to check in with an ID, and they will receive a badge to wear if they will be in any part of the building. These will also assist our front office staff with tracking student tardies and early dismissals, as well as provide them with an opportunity to push out an alert notification. We have been looking to upgrade and or add additional cameras in the buildings and on the buses. We've looked at a variety of companies and hope to make a decision soon on those so that those can get installed. Last evening, I had the opportunity to attend a town hall meeting online with OSBA regarding school safety, and they introduced me to an app that I had not heard of before. I would certainly recommend, and I will repeat this message at future board meetings. All parents have their child download this. It is a free app. It's extremely user-friendly. It lets you know what to do in a variety of situations, whether it's an active shooter, a bomb, treating injured people, and more. There are visuals. It is very student-friendly. On another slide of the app, as you kind of scroll through it, it has a nice acronym. If a student would ever have to call 911, it shows them the acronym SLIDE, situation, location, injured numbers, danger, and emergency services, and walks them through the information that they should be providing 911. The app is called Citizen Aid. That's Citizen AID. Again, I strongly encourage all parents to have their children download that on their phones if there's ever an emergency and they need to make a call. The Geneva Community Helmet Challenge is still going on. We have not had a winner yet, so just wanted to bring that back up. Again, that was the 21 helmets that were placed in businesses all around our community, and the first person to find all 21 will win a gift card. Certainly, this has been a challenging year, but we have all persevered, and I'm hopeful that summer allows us the time to rest, recharge, and hit the reset button. Two exciting pieces of work that we will be engaging in next school year will be a portrait of a graduate and revisiting our strategic plan. So we started the portrait of a graduate by sending out a survey. So if you've not seen that on our social media, I encourage you to get on and fill out the quick survey as we want to hear from a variety of stakeholders on what they feel are the characteristics and or skills that a student who graduates from Geneva should possess. And that is kind of the first step of that process. Some changes coming for the 22-23 school year. Last evening, we were able to secure a new community liaison. As I believe it's been mentioned in the past, Mr. Mattoon, who was wonderful in our district in that position and a coach for us, has retired. And we were able to find a new community liaison last evening, Kayla Jones. So she's a graduate of Edgewood High School and got her bachelor's degree from Kent State University, and recently she has been working with Children's Services for the past 5 years. So I know that Mr. Weatherholt and myself and Mr. Mollahan were very excited when we interviewed her, and think she'll be a great addition to the district. Additionally, the State Board Performance and Impact Committee approved a resolution to increase the third grade reading guarantee promotion score from 683 to 685, starting in the 22-23 school year. President Biden signed a $3 billion Keep Kids Fed Act that extends free school meals through the summer. If you recall previously, that was supposed to stop at June 30th, so that has been extended through the summer. And additionally, it will allow school nutrition programs to be reimbursed at a higher rate and have flexible guidelines to help address ongoing supply chain and staffing issues. However, a big change in the fall will be that families, eligible families, must apply to receive free and reduced meals next year. So I know that was not necessarily the case this year, but that will be a change. So we will continue to put that message out there. The families do need to apply this upcoming school year in order to receive free or reduced meals. I also attended a presentation from the Ohio Department of Education recently, and some of the points that they had communicated was that there continues to be shortages across the state for all positions. So again, we are not individualistic in that case. Enrollment is still down 2% approximately across the state since the pandemic. Kindergarten readiness scores have declined as compared to pre-pandemic, they reported overall throughout the state. And their two large focus areas moving forward will be literacy and workforce readiness. A few last topics to wrap up with is our extended learning or summer school this year. Our elementary and middle school just wrapped up their first session. Our high school will wrap up on Friday. We had 115 students attend. So that was wonderful to see. There will be another session in August. And then lastly, starting in July, I will be hosting Topic Tuesdays. These will occur each month on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. The focus of these will be to address topics either people have had questions about and or to provide more information on certain topics. So be on the lookout for that on our social media sites to learn more about what the topic will be and how to sign up. I will say that the topic for the month of July will be school safety. And that's all.
Okay. Anybody else with any other topics to discuss? Okay, I'll just mention, it seems like so long ago that I did this, but I visited Cork Elementary in May, toward the end of May. And as always, I was welcomed into the school. And this particular visit, I was able to meet with Mrs. Espanek in the autism unit. That is a unit that I hadn't been able to visit prior. And she gave me a lot of good information about the history of that unit that I really didn't know. Which was that it had been funded by the ESC up until 4 years ago, and that's when Geneva started funding it. And the program was supposed to have been left for us, but we really had to have our teachers kind of devise the program on their own. And I think that she has done a wonderful job. Her aides in her classroom, as I was just kind of, observing, were fantastic. In her particular classroom, there's 3 aides and 6 students, and then there's also a resource room that I was not able to go into with Ms. Nelson that also has 3 aides and 10 students. So I was given a lot of information about that, and this seemed to be the year that I learned a lot more about special ed, and I appreciated everybody that took the time to educate me on that. And I know there's a lot that I don't know, but I did pick up a lot along the way. And then I did observe in Mrs. Bowser's room. She has a 2nd grade class, and what was going on at that time was she had chicks in the classroom, baby chickens, and I think there were like 26 or 28, and the kids were very excited to tell me about how they watched them hatch and how they were taking care of them, how they were being fed. And that next weekend, I think, was Memorial Day. They were going to be taken home with Mrs. Bowser. So we had really good conversation. I was able to just stick my head into a few of the classrooms and wish the students and teachers a happy summer. I had the opportunity, obviously, to sit down with Mrs. Doherty, as I always sit down with the principals before I went through the building. So once again, I thank all of our schools and the staff for welcoming me into their buildings, and I look forward to continuing into the next school year. All right. The superintendent recommends that the board hold an executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body and or public office.
Move.
Second.
Discussion. And roll call.
Mrs. Yes. Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
We will not be taking any further action after the executive session. I appreciate your attendance this evening.